what were the first ground rules you established?
I was never going to spend what I didn't have. I wanted to create something that I could build. It just didn't feel like business to me.
How do you feel the media landscape is going to evolve?
I think the challenges are that the industry is challenged. We believe in modern media in all its forms. Sharjah is an organic growing community for us. You can't have a client on day one because you don't have an audience.
The exponential growth that you've had over the 9 years.
It's a tightly run business. Your question really is about what's our mission?
Welcome to Rising Sharjah. Today we have Richard Fitzgerald, the pioneer behind Lovin Sharjah and Smashi. We'll get an inside look at what it takes to launch and scale a media business in the vibrant landscape of Sharjah. Hi Richard, I'm so excited to have you with us today.
It's my pleasure, Freen. Thank you for having me here in Sharjah.
Richard, let's start off with how you decided to start your company. What inspired you to launch Lovin Sharjah and Smashi?
I guess I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to create something that I could build. I was doing entrepreneurial things. I was building from internally, and it was at the time it was a logical next step. A media company, Lovin Sharjah, is a local news and lifestyle. So many things that are happening in this country that are really of the time and of this century, and it's just amazing to be telling stories. And Sharjah has its own unique identity within that, and we just felt that often the capital and the noisy neighbours get a lot of the attention, but maybe Sharjah has its own unique stories as well that we can amplify and tell as well.
Could you walk us through the early days? What were the challenges? What was the team strength like? And how did this business start about?
I moved to the UAE. I was originally from Dublin and then London within marketing and social media agencies in 2012. And by 2015, I set out a mission of Sheikh Augustus Media to be the modern media company of choice in the Middle East and North Africa. And that hasn't changed. And it's to tell inspiring stories. And we do that through sort of youth-facing media brands. We started with Lovin Dubai. And then in 2020, we decided to make this a city lifestyle guide and platform across the region. It's now in 22 cities. Sharjah is an organic growing community for us. It's non-commercial at the moment. It's just telling the inspiring stories from here, representing the voices of the people who send us nice stories from Sharjah. And it's a step-by-step approach to media and to the business. We've branched out of Lovin. Lovin is strictly based on what we call horizontal brands. Everything will fit on top of Lovin Sharjah. We won't do Lovin Food, Lovin Sports. We keep it as a horizontal brand. It's a mindset brand as well. It's Lovin Life. It's YOLO. It's travel. It's food. It's entertainment. It's dealing with the realities of life about adulting and memes and fun as well. And then on the other side, we have another mindset brand. It's Smashi. And Smashi is for the driven, the dreamers, and the doers. Our main channels there are Smashi Sports and Smashi Business. So to tell those inspiring stories in different ways. I think the hardest challenge is that media itself globally is going through a transition. We could try to say modern media, digital, text, audio, and video. But I was doing digital advertising and marketing in Dublin with the biggest clients, biggest agencies since 2006, 2007. That's a pretty long time ago now. And even still, I'm still learning all the time on digital. The AI changed now, but everything I'd learned back there, from ad serving technologies to social media publishing to SEO to web builds to code, all that has stuck with me in the last almost 20 years. All those things are still things that you need specialty and expertise for. So while Lovin Sharjah is for Sharjah and based here, it really does need many, many different skills. To do a podcast, you need skills like the talented people in the room here. And to do newsletters, you need different skills. To do publishing on website, to do broadcasting a show daily, to do different types of video editing, different types of content on different platforms like YouTube and TikTok, and the technology that's needed behind apps, behind we have Lovin merch. You can buy Lovin Sharjah t-shirts, right? The technology and the delivery around that is all things that you need to constantly build. So I think the challenges are more their operation and technical skills that are needed to run a modern media business, as opposed to the native storytelling things that we can all do, or the compliance and legal and regulation, which there's a lot of support for. So I think the challenges are that the industry is challenged.
Another thing that comes to my mind when you say talk about startups is funding. It's a very crucial aspect of any new business that comes up. What would you say would be the right way for a new business or for an entrepreneur to go about funding their business? For instance, in case of Lovin and Lovin Sharjah, was this something that you had to raise funding through investors, or has it been completely bootstrapped?
Although I worked in and had a career in marketing and social media, I actually studied economics. And one of the principles of economics is that you don't spend what's not in your pocket. So, and I segued from a large corporate media group into this a pit stop, I should call it, in a startup. And I saw the startup talk about burn rates and spending cash without making money. And I think both of those principles, both that experience of how that business was operated and ultimately failed, and the studies that I had before meant that I was never going to raise money with this. I was never going to spend what I didn't have. And it just didn't feel like business to me. It felt like something else. It felt like speculation, it felt like loans. It felt like, and I get in certain sectors, zero-sum games, that growth at all costs is needed. But I think the principles of economics, principles of business are fundamentals that you can always stand by. There was money over the first 18 months. We needed to put in some personal cash into the business from friends and family and things like that. But publishing is a little bit different to other businesses in that you almost can't have a client on day one because you don't have an audience. And you need to build an audience, and build an audience, you need to create content, and content costs money. So we try to, in places like Lovin Sharjah and other places, we try and cut down that time frame and the resource that goes into it to the time that we can sustain it. I'm looking around these great facilities here, and I'm thinking of what time can we have journalists on the ground, and what time can we sustain a viable media business in Sharjah as well as the regional media business. So we're 2024 now. We started in 2015, so it's almost 9 years. We did $10 million gross revenue last year. We'll do $12 million this year at over 20% EBITDA. We only ever put in $160,000 into the business. I still own 75% majority. My sister and brother make that up to 85% family owned, and then there's two other associates, friends who are in the rest. We have structured board calls every 3 months. We have board meetings. It's a tightly run board meetings every 3 months, and then they get an update every month. So it's a tightly run business. Also, if you invest in a business early doors as an investor, you might want a liquidity moment. You might want cash out. So we sort of invest a lot back into the business, but we also do pay dividends. So giving dividend to the original investors and some dividends to me means that the requirement to sell or to take more, to give up more equity isn't as needed. So we can think long term. The question really is about what's our mission? How are we trying to achieve it? And we do think 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So we do think building sustainable growth and bootstrapping is a way to do that. So we're very cost focused. We're very conscious of, if we've got 100 dirham, do we spend it in Sharjah or Abu Dhabi or Muscat or Cairo or Beirut or Amman or Baghdad or any of the places where Lovin is present? Because if we spend it in one place, then we don't have it for the other, because you can't spend it twice. And so we have to be quite, there's a lovely phrase, can you add resources, capital or human? Capital resources is funding, or can you be resourceful? What can you do within what you've got right now, within the cash in your pocket, or with the people that you have right now? And that's a lot of how we approach funding.
The exponential growth that you've had over the 9 years, and the kind of, the revenue you've generated, the kind of community you've created, it all falls back on having a very strong foundation and the initial steps you would have taken while starting the business. Could you throw some light on what were the first ground rules you established, or the first few steps when you got this business up and running?
I treated myself like an employee, and I treated it like a business that was going to grow from day one. So whether that was sending all staff emails on the first of every month that haven't missed holidays or not in 9 years, whether it's 3 people or 90 people, it's just this sort of like compounding. We had values. We stand by our values of tenacity, which is being tenacious. The harder you work today, the more you're rewarded tomorrow. Don't give up. It's not a vanity game. You just keep going. Then ingenuity is about that there's a bit of genius inside every one of us, that we all have that creative, ingenious spark. And then velocity is about momentum and speed. So these are the fundamentals. We started in a co-working space. We tried to make profits to reinvest. We didn't have anything special. Lovin was a franchise. We bought out of it and we created our own, but I didn't have a fresh idea. I just adopted something. I wasn't a journalist. I just had hard work ethic and 10 years experience of dealing with clients. So there was nothing special. And a lot of it, I thank places like Sharjah and other cities that we're in, is that they are, you reference this sort of culture and the positioning that Sharjah as an emirate has done, but it's a lot more than that as well. Like I just took part in the Sharjah triathlon here, and you can just see sports rising. You can just see commerce rising. There's a lot of developers building nice. The triathlon took us on a track where I see lots of nice developments down by the waterfront and the Coronation. So I think, while I can say a lot of things that we did, you do need an economy to be there for you. We could do something in a country or a city, and if not, the economic environment mightn't be able to sustain what we're trying to do. So we won't take all the credit for what we've done.
That's just you being magnanimous. And what I can see, the theme coming out of our conversation is a lot on growth, revenue, and profits. So if you could, for our audience, tell us, how is it that Lovin and Lovin Sharjah makes money? What is it? What is the revenue model, and how does the company earn?
We kept our mission, Afrin, very simply to be the modern media company of choice in the Middle East and North Africa, in profitable growth and content and data. And then we took our whole team on our 8-year anniversary to Sahel in the north coast of Egypt. And we rephrased the mission a little bit to tell inspiring stories across the Middle East and North Africa. And I think that's important. We're a business. We need to, if we don't make revenue, we can't hire young media personalities. We can't create content. We can't navigate AI and all these things. But actually, we're a purpose-driven media company. We want to highlight the things in the region. We want to tell the stories of the people. We want to do media where others haven't, in formats that they haven't, in places that they haven't. And we want to build the Disney of the 21st century in the Middle East and North Africa. We're just looking for our Mickey Mouse. But I think this is the evolution of what we're doing. But, how we make money is that brands and local restaurants and F&B and startups and government entities can promote their activities on Lovin Sharjah. And we have a branded content format. That's our main unit, and we guarantee the views. So for the cost of a video production, you can do that through Lovin Sharjah, and you can get 150,000 views as well across all the different channels. So we do it cost effectively. We basically do a content and a media buy together. There's also what we call audience revenue. So that's the second bucket, and that's traditional sort of display advertising, banner ads. But we do that through programmatic. We have affiliate. So we have a thing called Lovin Shopping, which is mainly in partnership with AAP, the Amazon Associate Partnership, where we write about things that people can buy. We're coming into hot and travel season, so there's articles and listicles around that as well. Very much like BuzzFeed do in the US. And anything that's rev share with platforms, we bucket that in there as well. So we have huge shows on Snapchat, Bil Arabi, mainly in our Riyadh office. There's one called Mimun Khasr Social Media, and then Mimun Khasr Kura, where we talk about influencers and football topics across the region. We had a lot of extra show slate for Ramadan. We do Ramadan stories and lots of content around that as well, all presented by young media personalities. We hire a lot of people from AUS. We train people in, we work with the universities, and that's our rev share. Who makes money in that way? Content creators do. So they get money from the Discover section on Snapchat, from the partnership program on YouTube, and other platforms are doing more. X under Musk now is doing a lot more. TikTok are trying to, and Facebook and Meta and Instagram are trying to give more revenue share back if you have big audiences. And then the third bucket of revenue is subscription. direct to consumer. So that's like, we all have some sort of subscriptions nowadays, whether it's Netflix or other things. And Lovin is a free platform, but we did try a Lovin Extra subscription membership, and that didn't work. And now we've launched Lovin Merch. So that's direct to consumer with debit cards, so you can do that. The way we decided to do Lovin Merch is, rather than becoming an e-commerce platform and having a warehouse or having manufacturing, we decided to copy the Shein model of print on demand, and we partnered with Merchless to do that. So it's a little bit slower. It's kind of 3-4 days delivery rather than 2 hours. But we don't envisage ourselves being a big retail company. It's just for people who are proud of where they're from to have those T-shirts and have those logos and things like that, and the different brandings. And we can get into collabs and things like that as well. But really, other media companies do events and they charge for tickets. Our Smashi Sports brand has 6,000 registered users, mostly locals who watch the sports that we stream. The futsal, volleyball, handball and basketball for the UAE federations. And there's 1,000 paying Emirati sports fans who pay between 18 and 30 dirhams a month to watch their local teams like Sharjah, who are very good at handball and volleyball and basketball, and excellent at basketball, I should say. And we stream these games with our AI technology in the Sharjah court and stadium as well. So this is a way that we can make revenue. It's very hard. Media is very hard. There's a lot of doomsday around the world, around journalists being let go and newspapers shutting down and this sort of thing. So I don't think that, going back to your point about investment, it's not the most attractive category. We were luckily to attend the Sharjah Entrepreneurship Festival this year, which is an amazing event that has grown year over year. We've attended over years, and I particularly enjoyed this year's event. But the hot sectors aren't media, right? It's fintech, it's lots of different sectors. You don't see many media startups. You see sort of generative AI thing creeping in, but we see a lot of other sectors that are growing fast. And I think when media tried to be tech, they raised a lot of money and then they couldn't deliver, and then they ended up in trouble in other markets. So we're quite careful not to promise the dream around media tech, and not to say that we're going to make a ton of money. So we have to be realistic about how we make revenue as well.
And now, Richard, moving on, I would want to know from you, how has the cultural landscape, the economy, and Sharjah as the emirate influenced the work you do and the content you put out?
It very much does. I think, Sharjah's culture and direction and leadership affects Sharjah, but it actually has influence across the UAE. When I was a young, fresh, long-haired Irish guy, when I came here first, I was entertained by Sultan Al-Qasimi in his art gallery home, and he showed me everything that he was passionate about. And a lot of that art culture has stemmed through in Sharjah. There's the Banale, there's the Sharjah Book Fair, which is a literary fest in many ways. All literature publications and bookstores across the region come for that. Like, there's many things that Sharjah has. People love the Instagrammable places in Sharjah as well. There's a lot of things that are there. We always, even before we launched Lovin Sharjah, a lot of things that the leadership did that were community-based stories, such as giving back to the community and recognizing the contribution to people who live in Sharjah, were picked up on Lovin Dubai. And we always knew that the culture was there within the UAE. And so I think, it does very much represent the UAE. I like what it's done with the Sharjah Media Office, and I like what it's done in general in terms of positioning at an international level. But at a local level, I think everyone who grew up in Dubai or in Sharjah knew what Sharjah was, and knew the offering and the place and that it is. And I think people are proud to call it home.
That's true. And I'm sure as a business that's been running for 9 years and has been this successful, there would be these moments, during these years that you felt these are standout milestones for Lovin Sharjah. If you could throw some light on what were the few events that you consider were like the turning points of Lovin Sharjah in these 9 years?
Well, Lovin Sharjah actually only started 18 months ago, per se. We did cover Sharjah on the Lovin brand across the UAE, But in terms of having a standalone channel, website and profiles, and we migrated a lot of the Sharjah content from Lovin Dubai, from Lovin in general onto the Lovin Sharjah platform. So only in the last 18 months, there's been lots of highlights. There's been lots of things. As I said, there's lots of sporting activity that have been happening here. The Benali, the arts, the culture. Most recently, I already referenced it, but SEF and the talent that they brought here over the years, and particularly this year, it was quite nice to see. I thought this year the focus is a lot more on regional and local talent and the startups, and just to feel that vibrancy around that as well. And of course, Smashi Business was present there doing interviews, but which is that driven dreamer zero startup environment. But we were able to show the sort of the influencers that were attending the event and showing that culture as well from a more consumer landscape on Lovin Sharjah as well.
It's been great hearing from you, Richard, and everything you have told us now has added so much value to the conversation. And I'm sure all the budding entrepreneurs, the aspiring entrepreneurs, have stuck on this one point that this is a 10 million revenue business. What is that advice that you would give someone who wants to start their business now? What is it that has worked for you? What is it that they can learn from your journey?
I knew one way, and if I was starting again, I would start the same way. Hard work. No need of a fresh idea. Get something that works. When Lovin went live, it worked straight away. The audience was there. The business wasn't. But I knew that the content worked. But when Smashi went live, it didn't work. Smashi, we tried to do OTT linear streaming, and it didn't work. And now we've adjusted it because we believed in the mindset. We believed in the stories we're trying to tell. We believed in Smashi Business. We believed in Smashi Sports. We believed in getting value out to people. And I think there's a bit of that. It's like if you set up a restaurant, some restaurants will be busy on day one or in the week one, but some will need 18 months to build up a loyal customer fan base. And at what point do you give up? And I think you need to have a growth mindset. You need to think abundance. I always think of restaurants who work with us. Sometimes they blame the food. Sometimes they blame the marketing. Sometimes they blame other externalities, right? And that's very negative. Like they say, the city doesn't have people who want to eat this food or whatever. So I think having that positive mindset will get you through a lot. But it's not for everyone. And I wouldn't, as I said, I'd see myself as an employee. I see this as, I was always an entrepreneur, like doing departments within companies. So I see this as an extension of that. I'm not trying to exit. I don't want to retire. I don't care about beach life. I'm not in it for those things. I think sometimes if you have ideas and if you have vision, it's more freedom running a business yourself. And I like that. And that's the best thing about entrepreneurship. But I could have that as a CEO of another business if I had a good relationship with owners. It's hard otherwise. It's hard if you don't have a shared vision. And if you're the one directing the vision, it's easy to have a shared vision. But starting off, there's many different ways. I think if you're starting off in Sharjah, as I said, in SEF, and even sitting here in this publishing environment, if someone wants to start a podcast or which is the trendy thing right now, right? But I would caution a bit that I think there's a lot of podcasts. I would guess that there's about 3,000 podcast creators in the UAE, if not more. And I think that's a lot because there's no real business model around it. So I would caution, but I think good content and a good product can fit in any area. And I think because, when we launched Lovin, people told me that there's too many lifestyle and news stuff in UAE. Don't launch another one. Launch something else in music. But actually, the fact that there was people before us and we did it better in digital meant that we worked. Whereas when we launched in Saudi, there was no one before us really, and it made it harder for us to grow the market. So, so I think there's different dynamics that you can look at in why to start a business and how to do it.
That brings me to my question about what would you say would be the do's and the don'ts of starting a media company, maybe out of Sharjah or UAE?
Look, media is a challenging industry, and I'm not saying that to stifle competition. I want a wider ecosystem. I want there to be, I believe in the analogy of, rising tides lifts all boats, and I do think it's important. But I think, we talk about our values, but I think in media, you need a media lens. You need to know what your viewpoint is. I see some pages now on Instagram launching, and really, they don't really have a strategy. They don't have an identity. It's hard to know what they stand for. It's hard to know who they're talking to. And I think in the UAE in particular, because some of these emirates, and even in Sharjah, if you're trying to do, say, a cultural platform, then who are you talking to? Is it for Islamic art? Is it for the region? Is it for global? Or is it just for Sharjah? I think those decisions are important. Journalists somehow, in the US and the UK, when a large concentration of journalists are based in London and New York, it's often called bias towards that city. And I think this region has a lot of Dubai journalistic bias, especially Lovin Dubai, we're fine because it's in the name. But if it's a regional business platform or a regional entertainment platform, the journalists only write about what they know in their fishbowl, and they only write about here. And sometimes I need to correct them. I need to go, well, is that relevant for this audience if you're regional? So I think there's some things like that as well to decide. What is your media lens? What do you stand for? And which platform are you going to focus on? Are you going to be text, audio, and video? Are you just going to be podcasts with video? Are you just going to be social media? Are you just going to be newsletter? And then what is it, frequency of content? We talk about slow and fast news. Are you going to chase the algorithms and do the edits and jump on the retention editing, this buzzword on YouTube, or the loop, and you're going to watch what TikTok are pushing? Are they pushing 60 seconds? Are you going to chase that stuff all the time? Are you going to be really a slave for the algorithms? Are you going to do drops? Are you going to do slower news? Are you going to do one episode a week? Are you going to do teasers? Are you going to hype the episode and bring on the best guests? So what are you? Some people come into us and say, you need big guests. And I say, no, we don't. If someone else brings a big guest, we'll write about it in a fast way because we're doing fast social news really well. So there's many different factors in media, and you can tell I'm passionate about it. I could talk about it all day.
So looking forward, Richard, how do you feel the media landscape is going to evolve in Sharjah as a region?
So like this interaction and dealing with you and your team, I've also had the pleasure of sit down with other people involved in Sharjah's vision around media. And I do see what's being done here, this facility, attracting international, attracting local people, working with different entities across the Emirate, and bringing in young people from the universities and just supporting them. So obviously, we believe in the UAE, we believe in Sharjah, we believe in modern media in all its forms. And, there's Arab Media Forum coming up soon. And, we always see Sharjah represented at the different forums in the different ways. So it's if you're not in, you can't win. And I think Sharjah is definitely in and being involved in media and quite visionary around it as well.
That's great to know, Richard. And that kind of brings us to the last question for today's podcast. Is there any exciting project, any new expansion coming up with Lovin as the brand, or Lovin Sharjah, or Smashi business?
The thing that we're most excited about is Smashi Sports, because Sharjah has a lot of the federations, the UAE federations are based here, such as the futsal and the different federations, triathlon as well. And the chairman and the team are based here with Sharjah Sports Council. You can watch all the Sharjah Sporting Club games at the moment on Smashi Sports. We're very proud of that at all levels, at youth levels. So we're very proud of what we're doing around production in sports, and every interaction that we've had with either the Sharjah Sports Council or the federations or the Sharjah Club as well. And I particularly, as someone who takes part in these events, I took part in the Sharjah charity run at 10 p.m. at night in the second last week of Ramadan under the mosque. And it was just such a pleasure to be there. And it was such a pleasure to see the sporting activity that's happening. People are excited about the construction and the development part of Sharjah as well. But I do look forward, I do like going to the different events held in the in the Sharjah Exhibition Centre every year as well. So more of that is exciting.
Richard, thank you so much for coming in today. The insights you've shared today, your journey and the journey of Lovin Sharjah, I am sure it's going to be an inspiration for all our listeners and viewers out there. Thanks so much for coming in today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us today. Remember to subscribe to Rising Sharjah to catch every episode on innovation and entrepreneurship in Sharjah. Stay tuned and keep rising with us.